Howdy folks, I'm Cruel Calcium, carefully coaxing congenial cryptids.
I'm Amber. I originally said cool calcium, but you can be cruel.
Oh, I thought you said cruel. And here's some more Cruel Calcium. I was wondering why calcium was so cruel, but I guess it makes sense that it would be cool. And why cryptids?
Why not? I like cryptids.
Let's get started. Alright folks, our very first horrifying story is titled, Am I a Jerk for Telling My Daughter to Get Over Her Mother's Death? I'm a male, a 49-year-old. I had 3 kids with my lovely wife when she died when my kids were ages 4, 8, and 2. It hit my middle child the hardest, and she was closest with her because she looked exactly like a replica of her mother. When she died, my middle child struggled with depression and randomly crying in class. For her mother, it was so embarrassing, and this was while she was in kindergarten. I traveled a lot for work, so I was never home, and they stayed with my mom while I worked. 2 years later, I got married to a woman, we'll call her Mary, who's had 3 kids of her own. My middle child didn't like her at all from the start, and I made my kids call her mom. And we got married within 6 months of when we met. My dead wife's family hated me for remarrying so quickly and cut me off. I forbid them from seeing their nieces and nephews, which were my kids, because they didn't like me, which started a fight. The first year they didn't get along, she would come crying to me about how her stepmother hated her and how she wanted her mom back. Time skipped, and now my middle child is 17 and my middle child and Mary don't get along at all. It's always a fight. When I questioned my middle child about it, she told me that her stepmother doesn't like her at all, and I told her that's not true because she cooks food and gives her clothes and a roof over her head. She got upset, saying that was a minimum necessity. She wants a mom who supports her and hugs her and doesn't push her away or give her nasty looks when she so much as enters the kitchen. I got mad and I started yelling at her and saying how her stepmother was there longer than her actual mom and that she needed to get over it. And that her mother died 13 years ago and she needed to move on. She's not talking to me. Am I in the wrong here? Alright folks, what do you think? Is OP in the wrong here?
Yes, OP, my goodness. Do you even love your child? Like, first of all, who says that it's embarrassing for a kindergartner to cry over their dead mom?
That's what I want to know.
And then, he's like, oh, was gone for work, so I'm not even raising my kids. I spring this new lady on them, demand they start calling her mom. It doesn't sound like they've necessarily had any kind of grief counseling or anything to process their trauma. And nowhere in this does it ever sound like the stepmom has shown any affection or love toward this child.
Yeah.
It seems like she's come to OP repeatedly being like, your wife doesn't love me. And he's just like, she put a roof over your head, so clearly that's not true. Have you ever sat down with your wife and talked to her about why she's so hostile to your daughter? Why she gives her dirty looks anytime she enters the kitchen?
Well, and I would guess no. And I think that OP doesn't really want to deal with any of these issues. It sounds like as soon as his wife died, that he just was like, I'm out, peace, and kind of let the kids fend for themselves and laid all the responsibility onto his mother. It doesn't sound like OP really wants to be a father as much as he just wants to have kids and to let them do their own thing.
Yeah, well, and then cutting off his deceased wife's family because they were upset with him for making this huge adjustment to the kids' lives without considering the implications. It seems like every step of the way, he's just interested in what he wants, getting what he wants, and he doesn't care if his kids are happy. He doesn't care if they have a supportive family. All he wants is what he wants.
Well, and I mean, I think that the family is maybe a little bit in the wrong in the respect that this was 2.5 years before he remarried. And that seems like a lot of time to process and grieve and whatnot. I mean, certainly I'm not saying that they're entitled to their own opinions and views, but 2 years is usually a lot of time to move on and whatnot for a lot of people.
Yeah, but when there are kids involved, if he hasn't, done any introductions, it was 6 months from when he met her to when he married her,
Yeah.
so he didn't do anything to try and incorporate the kids, and then she's bringing her own kids into the relationship.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that that's a completely different issue at hand, too. I think that is a problem. And I think that he should have done a lot more to making sure that their kids were comfortable and making sure that the family dynamics would work after they got married.
So I'm just saying, like, we don't know the maternal relatives' motives. It could be that they were just still grieving their lost sister,
Yeah.
but it could be that they saw the harm this was causing the kids, and then he just cut them off. And
Yeah, the way I interpreted it is that they were getting angry at OP for moving on too quickly. But if it's a matter of them being like, well, you're doing harm to your children, then I mean, that's a different issue, right? But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck.
to your kids.
And maybe a walrus says, your kids lost their mom. You abandoned them for 2 years. You married a stranger within 6 months of a relationship. You forced your kids to call her mom. You think that she is a good stepmom because she provided your kids with the things that they are legally required to provide their kid. You're the jerk, and you're the reason your kids were never able to get over their mother's death. And Sylphe says, if all of this is true, you're the jerk, and you have been a jerk to your daughter for the majority of her life. Wouldn't be surprised if you find that she goes no contact with you, as any decent therapist would make that suggestion to her after the regular dismissal of her emotional needs all through her childhood. And newbie 2454229 says, poor child, I don't know what's worse, losing her mom so young or having you as a dad. I mean, I think losing the mom, to be quite honest. I mean, I think that's the answer. But it's a good second place.
Yeah, it's a good way to compound that grief when you have an emotionally absent parent who then expects their new wife to do all the parenting.
Mm-hmm. All right, folks, our next letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Embarrassing My Wife in Front of Everyone? I'm a 26-year-old male, and I've been married to my wife, a 25-year-old female, for 3 years, and we have had a very happy marriage. Of course, we've had small arguments, but nothing like what I'm about to tell you. 2 weeks ago, my wife decided to host a get-together with a few of our close mutual friends. I thought that it was a quite random thing, but I agreed to host it with her. She spent a lot of time preparing food, drinks, and even went out of her way to purchase some new furniture for the party. She also seemed very happy to host this gathering. Later that evening, we were all sitting around a circular table that she had bought when she stood up and said that she had something to tell me. She then made a speech about how the past 4 years have been the happiest years of her life, and she then continued to utter the words that I'm pregnant. I was really shocked, and I thought that this was just a really dumb joke, so I laughed loudly and said, you must be cheating on me. That's not my baby. Everyone gasped, and suddenly my wife burst into tears and she ran into the kitchen. Her elder brother and 2 of her friends followed her to comfort her, I suppose, while I just sat there confused. Everyone sat in silence until a couple of my friends decided to go home. I decided to just head to bed because I honestly was just so confused. The next day, I woke up to hundreds of texts from our family and friends about how I was a horrible husband and insensitive, and also my wife was gone, and to be honest, I don't really care. I feel like she should have told me privately, and that I'm not in the wrong for saying what I said. Soon after, I got a text from my wife saying that I really embarrassed her, and that some of her girlfriends actually believed that she had cheated and demanded that I apologize. I told her that I wasn't going to say sorry because it was an honest mistake. I also said that she was being overly dramatic and she has always taken things too seriously. As I said, all of her friends have been calling me and messaging me and saying that I am a jerk and attacking me. So am I the jerk for embarrassing her? Also, I'm on mobile. Sorry for the format if it's messed up. Alright folks, what do you think? Is OP a jerk or not the jerk?
Well, it seems OP's more apologetic for messing up on mobile than for humiliating his wife.
You know, I mean, I accept any apology OP has for me.
Like, I do agree that you should always tell your partner before you make an announcement like this, but his reaction is completely jerk territory. Like, first of all, why would she get all your close friends together and then be like, ha ha, I'm pulling this giant pregnancy prank? Like, that doesn't even make any logical sense.
Well, okay. So, OP, you notice that your wife is putting together a huge party. and she's buying furniture, and she's going out of her way to do all these little things. And during any of that time when she was preparing and doing all this stuff, did you stop her and be like, so what's the special occasion all about? You're going all out here. Maybe there's a special occasion there.
Like, it seems like OP is very uninvolved in this marriage and may not even really care very much for his wife because he doesn't care that he hurt her. He's just like, I woke up and she's gone and whatever. Like,
I was just so confused the whole time. I was just confused. I didn't go and console her or try to figure out what was going wrong. I just sat there in confusion, wondering where I messed up in my life.
Yeah, like I guess her brother went to console her. Like, do you not realize, OP, that that's kind of your responsibility as her partner? Like, the moment you see your partner running out in tears, even if you didn't mean to be hurtful, it doesn't matter. Like, if it was some kind of, like, jokey response, if a joke doesn't land, you still are responsible for making that joke.
Yeah. Well, and then on top of everything, like, everyone else was pretty well aware that she was serious, right? And they knew that she had some kind of big announcement. She wanted you to be happy, and you kind of failed on that front.
Yeah, well, and I just can't get over him accusing her of cheating in front of their family and friends. Never once did he either clarify that he wasn't serious, too.
Yeah.
He just like, this isn't my baby, you're cheating.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if OP doesn't want to be a parent and is kind of like in denial. Even if that's the case, he's handling it very badly, but...
Yeah. Well, it doesn't come across as somebody who wants to be a father. Let's put it that way. And he could have been felt shocked at the moment, right? And put on the spot and didn't know how to react. And certainly that's a valid and legitimate reaction to have. But then I think he took it way too far with his, joke here, because this was something that was clearly very hurtful to her. And he didn't even clarify to anyone that was there in the moment that he was just joking, like, no, I'm sorry. I thought she was kidding. And so I pulled a pun.
Yeah, he doesn't clarify. He doesn't console her. He doesn't try to do anything. He just, like, lets his friends leave and then he goes to bed.
Yeah.
Like, every step of the way, like, one thing may not have made him a jerk, but every single step just makes him into a giant jerk.
Yeah. But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. And Pumpkin Escobar says, were you guys trying to have kids or had plans to have kids? I'm just trying to get some context here if you don't mind. And OP replies, we haven't planned to have kids at all, and that's why it came as a surprise. And Face in a Crowd says, info, do you even like your wife? And OP replies, yes, I do love her. I just feel that she's being overly dramatic, and I don't know what to do.
Okay, OP, how would you feel if your wife, in front of 30 of your closest friends and family members, was like, you know what, you're cheating on me?
And Mucho Mas says, you're the jerk. What kind of response was that? She wouldn't have made a speech like that if she was joking. It's fine if you would have preferred to talk to her in private, but that's still no way to react to that kind of news. And the fact that you won't apologize is mind-boggling. You really meant to seriously accuse your wife of cheating on you. And Fig Equivalent 7200 says, publicly. He publicly accused her of cheating on him. And Mary Ann 0601 says, in front of her family. Alright folks, and our last letter is titled, Am I a Jerk for Telling My Brother's Girlfriend that he had a vasectomy when she was telling me about their plans to settle down and have a family? My brother Mark is 40 and he won the lottery when he was 20. It was like $1,000 a week for life. He was young and wanted to travel. He dropped out of school and he has spent his entire adulthood basically seeing the world. He comes home to visit every few years, and we FaceTime with him when he's near a signal. He doesn't travel first class or stay in expensive resorts, so he actually has built up quite a nice savings. He came home with a girlfriend, Haley, 28 this year. They met when they got stuck in South America during the pandemic. She had been traveling since she graduated from university, and she works out of a laptop. I am a 54-year-old female, and I live in the same city where I was born. I love it here. I love being close to my parents and my grandchildren, and most of my siblings. Mark hated being the youngest of 8 and always swore that he would not have kids. Our parents were older when they had him, and they didn't have the energy for him truth be told. Mark came home when he was 30 and told us that he had a vasectomy and that he would not be contributing to the world population. Haley is pretty young, and she also is intelligent and sweet. I can understand why anyone would fall in love with her. We were having a family barbecue to celebrate Mark being in town. There were maybe 30 people in my parents' yard and house. I talked to Haley about her future plans now that the world is opened up again. She said that she was ready to settle down and start a family. I asked if they were planning on adopting one from one of the countries that they had traveled to, or if they would try in North America. She said that they had talked about it and would be having at least one child of their own. This is where maybe I messed up. I asked where Mark got his vasectomy reversed, or if they were having an in vitro fertilization. I know that they can harvest male reproductive cells from a testicle even after a vasectomy. She went very quiet and went over to Mark. They spoke and then they left. Mark called me later that night and screamed at me for ruining his life. He hadn't told her, and he was just planning on continuing to travel and maybe adopt if they decided on it. He said that I shared private medical information and that he never wanted to see me again. I apologized over and over. I seriously had no way of knowing that he was planning a future with this girl without telling her a pretty big piece of the puzzle that she might be missing. I feel bad for him, but I think that he should have told her. All right, folks, what do you think?
Not the jerk. I mean, why would you assume that this wasn't common knowledge? He wouldn't announce his vasectomy to your entire family.
Yeah.
Like, of course he's going to tell his partner, who is openly talking about trying for children.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't see how he would expect you to make that leap of like, oh, clearly I should not tell her.
Well, I think that this is one of those situations where OP had no idea that this was private medical information because he had made it public. It was something that everyone knew and was publicly announced. And that always puts things in a little bit of a tricky type of situation. And I certainly do think that people have the right to privacy of their medical information. But when you've made it available to the public, that does make it a little bit of a different type of situation.
Right. Once you've told everyone and it's kind of become a conversation topic, like, I assume people would just kind of discuss this. Like, it's not like something OP snooped through his papers and it's like, aha, he had a vasectomy.
They were just having casual conversation, and she was curious about, oh, well, how are you planning on doing this since Mark's had a vasectomy? And I think those were very reasonable questions to have. And I feel bad for OP because they've been put in a bad spot because Mark didn't tell everyone not to share this information ever again, right?
Right. And I mean, he's just being a really bad partner. That is such a cruel thing to do to someone, to be like, oh, yeah, we'll totally have kids.
Yeah.
Like, what's he going to do when they don't have kids? Is he going to, like, make her go through invasive fertility tests? You know, because unfortunately, oftentimes when some couples have fertility issues, the immediate assumption is that the woman is the one with fertility issues. Yeah,
well, hopefully he would just get tested and then find out that his count was low or something like that, you know?
Like, it's just such an underhand thing to do to a partner.
Yeah.
And, like, you should be on board. Like, if you don't want kids, find someone who doesn't want kids also. Don't try to lead someone on and just be like, oh, well, I'm going to keep this a secret from you and you'll never get the family you want.
Yeah, I think that's very cruel. I really do. If this is something that she has her heart set on, then they need to be on the same page. He can't do this to her if she really has her heart set on having kids. But let me know what you folks think. So anyhow, take care and good luck. And Acceptable Clue 1541 says, I mean, did you slip up or did you know that you are kicking a wasp nest? And OP replies, they've been together for almost 3 years and are planning on one biological kid. I assumed that it must have come up. Yeah.
That would be the natural assumption.
And At Work Was Already Take says, if he was planning on telling her soon in his own way, then you're the jerk. But it doesn't sound like that was the case. You might have lucked into being not the jerk. The right thing to do would have been to leave it and then ask him about it later. If he said that he wasn't going to tell her, then you would have been well within your rights to try and convince him of how wrong he was in the first place, and then tell her yourself. The problem with retiring at 20 is that one can become quite self-centered. That's what I think might have happened here. Mark's world revolves around Mark. And OP replies, I honestly thought that would have come up with them by now, planning a future together and having been together for almost 3 years. I mean, honestly, again, like, I know Amber just said this, but being together for 3 years, you'd think that would have come up at least once? Well, and then, okay, also think about, like, the emotional stress and toll on that. Like, if she's has irregular periods or something like that, then I imagine that might have even been mentally cruel at some points in time. Like, maybe she missed a period or something like that. Did he, how would she have been reassured that, oh, this isn't a problem, or any number of things, right? So
yeah, well, and then, like, if she does have irregular cycles, she could get her hopes up and have that crushing, every time then she then gets her period.
Yeah.
Or, maybe it's, late because, some people do have really irregular cycles, and then you take the test and it's negative. Like, those can be very emotionally hard on someone who's actively trying for children.
Yeah. So I think this whole thing was very, very cruel to do to her. And honestly, like, it's not something that she deserves. She deserves to know the truth. All right, folks, it is tea time. Grab your beverages of choice. I've got a beverage of choice right here. Amber's got a joke of choice, and it happens to not be a jovial Bob Stein one for once.
How does a train eat?
Well, I can tell you exactly how a train eats. Have you ever seen the mouth on Thomas the Tank Engine? That thing is huge. He eats with his mouth. It's horrifying.
It goes chew, chew.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he does. He literally goes chew, chew, chew. It's like sticking coal into his mouth, and he just chews it up. Horrifyingly black teeth when he gets done eating. Looks like something out of a horror movie. Never watched Thomas the Tank Engine eat. And I have Mega Mint. Alright, folks, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Happy Thursday, Friday Junior.
Aww.
Amber, you're supposed to be here with me.
Yeah.
Is this like the second week in a row that we forgot?
I think we got it last week. I think it was the week before we missed.
Yeah, I just completely spaced on that.
Same. It's one of those things where it's like the days kind of blend together.
Yeah. So, Amber, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Amber, we need some kind of moral advice and or guidance. And please, please, have it in the form of the worst thing that you can say to somebody who's grieving.
Wouldn't that be an anti-moral then?
It would be.
Yes, well, so sad, but here, meet your new mom.
Yeah, that would be a pretty bad way. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
Bye.